Hi, this is Cristina Dam, and this is Liberate the Podcast, where we educate, motivate, inspire, and liberate your consciousness. Hi, welcome to another episode of Liberate the Podcast. Today we have a special guest. She's been doing spiritual work, transformational work, teaching and spreading her just plentiful of knowledge about healing and actualizing unconditional love since, even before I was born. And
exactly. That's true.
It's such a pleasure, to be with somebody that really walks the talk and has so much to share. And I'm excited to see where we go with this podcast today, because we left it a little bit open so that we could talk about whatever kind of comes about, because there is so much that she shares and so much knowledge that she's gained over the years and channeled from multiple lifetimes before this. So welcome, Marilene Isaacs Kauffman.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. I really am. This is wonderful. Thank you.
So anything that I missed in that describing an introductory of yourself?
That's pretty good.
Okay. Do you want to, I like to dive in a little bit about where you're from, a little bit about kind of your beginnings. You're pretty much the first, let's call it psychic intuitive on TV even,
right, absolutely. Yeah.
So you did.
I call myself like a pioneer. I was around before the New Age movement was even kind of heard of or popular. Mm-hmm. And it kind of started beyond that. I can remember my birth and where I was before.
Okay.
Which is kind of an interesting, so I came in with what I would call conscious recall. I found that later from being very familiar and connecting with the Dalai Lama and different people. They said, "Oh, that's conscious recall." You brought. So in other words, I kind of brought with me, and I think more people do than they realize it. But you bring through consciously more than you might know things, abilities. Some people are born, they can paint beautiful pictures, or people can write music, or I apparently for many lifetimes have been on this path of healing, of using intuition, teaching. Mm-hmm. So I was born in Connersville, Indiana. My father was a beekeeper. So I was born in 1948, so I'm 70 years old. I don't feel
70 years young.
70 years young, yes. And from the time I was this big, I just always knew things, felt things, would tell people things. I thought it was natural. My dad and I would walk through the woods, and wild animals would come up to us, and I just thought everybody could do this, right? So it was just natural, which was kind of odd for the early 50s.
Yeah.
And my mother was a school teacher, so I think when I would tell her things when I was 2 or 3 years old about Egypt or different, they thought she really has an active imagination. she's different.
She's different.
Yeah. So and I would call Indiana Indiana. And they're going, "No, it's Indiana." I go, "No, it's Indiana, like the goddess." So I kind of knew things, but didn't even know that you don't know. When you're a little child, you just kind of, you're self-aware of certain things. Right?
Yeah, and if you think that that's normal because that's the only thing you know,
right.
There's nothing to kind of say, hey, no other kids are seeing that. But what was that experience for you when you did start school and stuff and starting to interact with other kids?
Oh, that was amusing.
You're like, wait, my reality of the world is very different than theirs.
I would get kicked out of people's houses. I would go visit, we first lived in town before we moved to the country when I was in the second grade. And I'd be at kids' houses, and I would go and talk to the adults, and I go, "Well, how's Karen?" And they're like, "How do you know who Karen is?" Right? I would just, so they would be like, "Oh," and I would tell kids things. And when I didn't get kicked out, they were kind of like, "Okay." And I learned early on from my parents, back in the 50s, it was very popular to go to supper club things where 4 or 5 couples every Friday would take turns going to different people's houses and cook food. Okay. So I think I didn't have a brother till I was 5 and a half, so I was the only child, so I don't think they had a babysitter. So all I remember going to this people's house, and I was really bored. I was the only child there, and I was sitting next to this man, and it was all couples, and I go, "How's Janet?" Everybody stops eating. I said, that blonde woman that you see once a week? Yeah, and I had no clue. Of course, I didn't see why he saw the woman, fortunately.
Yeah.
So I was a little child. But I just knew, as I'm getting kicked under the table, and my parents, I'll never forget it, they go, "You don't always tell everybody everything that you see."
Wow.
Yeah.
So were your parents supportive? Because I mean, they had
Right,
at that point like been like, okay, there's too many coincidences
right.
that.
My mother was a magical person in the sense that she lived on faith. She was very faith-based. She came from an all-Dutch community up in northwest Iowa and went to college in the 40s and then she wanted to go to China to be a missionary. They sent her to Kentucky because the war was going on. So she couldn't go to China. That's where she met my dad, who was like this crazy mountain guy who was a moonshine maker. And she came from this really conservative. So but she was very, in the sense, she always went on faith. She said God always guided her. Holy Spirit always guided her. And then my father, same thing. When he was 5 years old, is when his first beehive came to him. So, and I didn't find out that I was an adult that my grandmother, who I adored, she died when I was very young though. She actually, people would come to her from all over this remote, they lived in this really remote part of Kentucky, dirt floor cabin kind of thing, right? To be for healing, and she read kind of tea leaves, or she would tell people things because her mother was Native American.
So perfect family to be born into.
So it's kind of DNA and spiritual DNA.
Yeah,
it's interesting,
and allowing for the environment for you to really,
right.
Because as you were saying, a lot of people might come in with that ability or that knowing, but they're shamed or made wrong or told that's not,
which is so sad,
not okay, or that they're making stuff up to the point where they suppress it, they turn it off, and then years later they might join on their spiritual journey and start to uncover things and realize that, oh yeah, that's what I was doing as a kid.
Exactly. Yeah, kids, I think till like 7 or 8 are very open. Until they get shut down, right? Mm-hmm. I think children, the Gnostic Gospels say, except you become a child, you can't enter the kingdom. And it's about that innocence of the child. But we all have that innocent child in us that we can integrate into our adult self. Yeah. I don't think I ever grew up. I still feel like I'm like 5 years old. But that's okay.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. That's how
it's
I feel like
right?
People should be like that more often. I mean, what is grow up or not grow up? I mean, we're just playing a game called life anyways, right? And
exactly.
So it's just like you put higher imaginary stakes because it's all irrelevant anyways, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
When did you feel like you first...
Oh, look at this. Turning the table.
I always like to have conversations. This is good.
No, it's interesting. Like, even when I was little, I would always sit out in the backyard and look at the stars and feel like they were my home.
Isn't that true? Yes, I had that experience, yes.
And, like...
Lay on the ground.
And I mean, we had a small house with a big family, so oftentimes I'd even make, like a fake tent in the backyard and sleep out there.
I did tents.
We had a clothesline and we had tarps,
Oh
and
God.
so I would drape the tarp over it and put some rocks, and I would sleep in there. And it was also my savior because I shared a room with 2 other people. So it was like, okay, I'll just sleep outside, and nature was my thing. And then I was like, okay, I don't relate.
So cool.
So it started then, and then
I love that.
But
because I think that's the way people who are born very self-aware, we look to this, we remember where we came from. It's natural to be looking up,
Yeah, and get lost for hours upon hours and just like lay there. And
I would do that in our house too. I would be so bored sometimes. I would pretend. No, I know I wasn't pretending. I would pretend that the whole room was on the ceiling, and that I was up there on the ceiling.
Wow,
looking down. And I think children do all these things. I think we just don't. People don't talk about it. But I love that. That's really...
Because, I mean, it's really cool. Only the barrier of our mind that puts the constraints on everything, right?
Absolutely.
So I say, like, why people can in martial arts just cut through because they don't see that
there's no barrier.
They're not there, and they go right through the, big bricks and everything. And I wonder how much more we could do if society didn't.
Well, that's my whole thing about, I feel like we fell through fear, not through sexuality. We fell through fear into the illusion of separation in the garden. And I really think the meaning of the garden is when we were in the garden and I believe that the garden is still here. I don't think we have to die to go to heaven. I think that the garden is still here. And when you clear your fears, you see it, right? But when we ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that's the left brain, right brain.
Yeah.
That's duality, right? And that's when we became, oh my God, I'm going to die. I need to kill something to eat something. Nothing, when we, in the original garden state, nothing has to die to live. And so when we we are the tree of life. If we are microcosmically, our bodies are, we are the tree of life. And we're like walking trees. It's one of the best spontaneous guided meditations that Spirit gave me a long time ago. In one of my Oracle teachings, I use it a lot. We're walking trees. So I just tell people to feel like there's roots coming from the bottoms of their feet that root you deep into the earth. You're a walking tree. So you're always deeply connected with the Mother, which are also from the stars. You're from the Divine Father, from the star, and there's a star that connects you. And if you always think about that you're deeply connected and rooted to the earth always, no matter what the outer world tries to tell you, how poisoned the earth is, how dangerous the earth is, how she's dying. She's not dying.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, she's ready to
she's ready to die out and kill us.
She's ready to shake the parasites off of what she's ready to do. And I think that's what that wind the other night was pretty fierce. It was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
That's all that it's all moving now.
Yeah. So I mean, Mother Earth will continue until until our sun blows up. Then there might be a different thing going on, but
And I think that's that same stuff. I think there's always natural things that happen of life, death cycles, of death, rebirth, and
of course.
But I think it doesn't take everybody getting it. If you look at historically, the Earth, they say 5, 6, 7 times, who knows, alternately has been almost destroyed by fire and water, and the Great Flood was the last one. But it just takes a few righteous people, or a few people who are actualizing unconditional love, who are holding the light. Then how serious the earth changes are, it's mitigated.
Yeah.
And so when you are and do light work, we talked about, you come under psychic attack. I mean, there's no doubt. And for people out there that don't think that's real, come on, look what happened to Jesus. Anybody that spoke the truth has been persecuted. So it's an interesting time. So the more people it's about how we treat one another. It's about actualizing unconditional love. It's not reading about it. It's how we treat ourselves, how we treat each other.
So talk to me a little bit more about that, because I know one of your biggest teachings is actualizing that unconditional self-love.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or unconditional love in general. So let's share a little bit, like, what do you mean by that? And because there's those nominal phrases that
exactly. To me, when the word actualize, I started using it in my stuff about 20 years ago, and it's not a concept. This is not a dress rehearsal. This is not a trial run. So everything that we're doing, this is it. You do it, right? It's not walking away and wishing I would have done this, wish I would have said that. The more you move the fear, when you're fear-based, you want to control or be controlled, basically. That's just what happens, right? When scriptures talk about this, perfect love, and to me, I think they're meaning unconditional love, casts out all fear.
Yeah.
So and that's why we love animals so much, because they teach us about actualizing unconditional love. They love us whether we pet them, feed them.
I don't know, my little Chewy.
Yeah, maybe
he goes,
exactly, right? but it's so easy to connect with animals, right? And babies, or to receive and give, right? No. And it's being in that state of happiness, of where you don't see yourself as separate. So it's like the golden rule: do unto others like you'd have them do unto you, but actually feeling the oneness, getting rid of the illusion of separation, because that's really, is that going back to that point of origin. Where did I first start to separate out?
Yeah. Where
did I first start to move away from the idea that there isn't just one body of Holy Spirit?
Yeah.
And that's where the trouble comes in, is where we fell into
the
separation.
And then separation creates fear, because then it breeds this inability to trust, and then there's
and my God's better than yours, and killing in the name of, and blah, 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 blah.
And even just an attachment to expectations or outcomes, like this is what's best for me or the situation, then it breeds this agony and misery when things don't turn out the way. And then there's a fear that maybe it won't turn out the way that you want, and then people don't do. I really like what you said, and I think that it bears being repeated, that this isn't a dress rehearsal
or a trial run.
This is the real thing. I think a lot of people say one day, maybe someday,
Okay.
once I accomplish this, once
Yes.
I do that, then I'll start living my life having that. But that really resonated,
Good.
you know, like, but I feel like, you know, having that be resaid.
Thank you. Yeah, because I love that, because it's so, it's one of the truest things. It's really what karma and dharma are. Okay, it ties into, because people ask me all the time, what's the difference between karma and dharma?
Mm-hmm.
Karma is for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you skip a rock on a pond, it makes a ripple, right? Everything we think, feel, say, and do goes out into a rate of frequency or vibration.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the Akashic records are. People make a big deal about reading. Yeah, there's a living vibratory record.
Yeah.
The Bible and different religions call it the living book of life. It's the Lamb's book of life, or the living
Mm-hmm.
book of life. It's a real thing. So what dharma, how karma works, is it pulls us in through familiarity.
Mm-hmm.
So many times we'll think something is awesome, and we go, oh, this is great. And you go, oh no, this is familiar.
It's comfortable
It's
because
comfortable.
yeah.
I know this. And or you meet somebody and you think, oh, they're way different than the other person was. But if you haven't healed something within you, right?
Yeah, just
then
it's mirroring and saying,
comes right back up. So the more
Yeah.
whole you are, then you attract wholeness. So what I learned a long time ago, try whatever you're doing instead of walking away, and because you're going to have this Groundhog Day, you're going to have to repeat it if you don't. So dharma is whatever moment you're in, you fulfill that moment, and there's no karma from it.
Mm.
And there's beautiful moments of that happen and can happen. That's why I really know that. That's where Christians get the whole thing about being saved and being. You can have moments of this real transmutation and light that comes in, right? But you can have them all the time. I like the whole thing of I die daily. You know, different scriptures talk about that, dying daily, dying to your old, so you're fresh. Things change so often. So if we get stuck, we keep repeating the karma, right? Because of the familiarity. So what I try to do all the time, every morning, every night, I surrender and I go, you know what? I want only my highest good. I want only whatever my divine blueprint is. I have used my free will, which is a wonderful gift, and I've gone kind of astray sometimes. I'm dealing with that karma, and I get it. I'm not going to judge myself or judge other people, but I know there's certain things I'm living out because I made certain choices. That's one of the greatest gifts is free will, right? And co-creation with God. So the older I've gotten, it's been like, okay, let's just surrender. I only want the divine blueprint. It's not like a blind faith, it's more of a knowing faith.
Yeah.
And it really helps to do that. Because a lot of times our lower mind will think we know, and it's really part of our ego, and we'll think, oh no, I know this to be this person or this thing. And I've learned through the years that might be the lower ego.
Yeah.
And maybe there's something much better that's going to come along, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's that trust, and that if we go back to what you were talking, and I love that a lot of your work, and I've had the privilege of working with you, is that point of origin.
Yes.
Right? And so
where was the seed planted?
Where was the seed planted? Where was the separation taken? Because if you really get that you're connected to everything,
yes,
and that you are one with everything, then you know that everything on some level is divinely perfect. Right?
Exactly. Totally believe that.
Then you can have trust. Then you can be like, oh, this fell apart so that this could work out, you know? And there's not that fight and hard friction.
Right. Because I think what happens too, so many people, they want to cut cords. And a long time ago, Holy Spirit said to me, no, you have to go back to point of origin, because if you cut a cord, it's like going into a garden with a weed whacker and cutting weeds down. They're going to come back up. Mm-hmm. You've got to go back. You've got to go to the root system. So when I work with people and work with myself, I try to go, okay, where did I first feel this? Because most of what activates anybody in any given moment now is a tip of the iceberg of more ancient patterns, more ancient events that just have happened over and over and over again until they've reached a boiling point. And that's what's happening now. That's why people are so angry and so intense, because we're being forced to heal. Yeah. So what you want to do when you feel a major activation, and instead of being in that karmic reactive loop, right, the familiar loop, you want to go, okay, where have I experienced this before? Who does this person remind me of? Was my mother like this? Was my father like this? Keep going back down into it. And the more you do, even on your own, people, you'll start to remember things. You'll start to go, whoa, okay, yeah, I remember this, I remember this, I remember this. Because so much when we stay in the reactive place, and that's really how kind of the dark forces work, is to keep us confused between the left brain, right brain. This is bad, this is good, this is, this world of duality, right? So the more you go back into where's the familiarity, where does this leading me, and consciously doing it, you'll have dreams. You'll start to, on your own, even remember past life experiences or other things from other times will come up. Then you can know that it's the great secret of the saints and masters. They don't take things personally.
Yeah.
That when you heal those wounded places, of course, you still feel the wounds, right? If they haven't healed.
They have to take time.
It takes time. It's like Jesus, before he was called the Christ. Even Jesus, when he was abandoned by all the disciples except for the women, except for the Marys. I feel very connected with Mary Magdalene and with Yeshua and all that time. Even the last thing he said, one of the things, if you want to look at it symbolically, allegorically, or real, however you want to perceive it, he was abandoned. He had to go through death, hell, and the grave. It's an alchemical journey that we all go through, right? And he said, Father, why have even you forsaken me? And in that moment, when he felt that God had even forsaken him, he said, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful thing. That one of my oracles about 30 years ago, that came through so strong as a vision I saw. And I was like, and I shared it with people, and it just brought tears to my eyes, because it was like, of course, as humans, we feel abandoned, we feel rejected, we feel let down. But when you finally go to that nth degree, and to the nth degree of that original separation, fear, and you go, oh my God, no, this isn't personal.
Yeah, because they don't,
they don't know what they do.
We went through life and we've done things to other people, places, things, and circumstances that we're living from one narrow mind viewpoint. And then if you can map yourself, most people have parental issues, right? In some way, shape, or form. No parents were perfect, because no parents were ever designed to be that way. You grow and you learn from the mistakes and the challenges just as much as the gifts, but there's this longing or desire that people often have, that if only my parents were like this, or they did this one thing to me, that I'm like, dang.
Magical thinking,
But then if they can actually take a moment to actually put their self in their parents' point of view, in their shoes, it's like some people don't realize, like, let's say if they had their parents, or the parents had them young, where they're still kids trying to figure it out themselves, and like my case, my parents had me old, they were done, I was the youngest of six, like
every age they were a different parent to each child,
there's where were they, because we're all going through a human experience, and we're all doing our own journey, and in that own journey, you can't be everything to everybody at every time, but you're doing the best that you can. And I don't think there's a time a long time ago that one of the presuppositional phrases was, people mean to do good.
Yes,
right?
I believe that.
And that at the core of behaviors, that they think they're doing good, even if it's to do good for their own self-servingness, right?
Sure.
Like the guy that has a family at home that ends up robbing a gas station because they're hungry and ends up shooting somebody. It's like, well, okay, people can say that was a horrible thing, but from his motive, he was trying to provide food and safety and shelter.
Subjective reality every day.
And so it's like, he didn't know what he did and the damages, in this figurative story, right?
Sure.
But I like that.
Yeah. And I always tell people, because it's something I learned, kind of taught myself a long time ago, is also, as long as we think of ourselves as a role and somebody else as a role, we have negative and positive expectations.
Yep.
And we all know the stories when you go home for holidays, or you go, it's like, oh God, this person's going to be this. People revert. They kind of revert back to who they were when they were. And if you kill off, and be disrespectful to your siblings or your parents, but think about people within yourself by their first names, and don't see yourself as a daughter or a son or a brother or father, mother. Once you start to break through that, you get rid of your anger that they should have done this, or I should be doing this.
Yeah.
And that's really the true path of Tantra. Tantra, all it means is union. And it's when you can become your own mother, father, brother, sister, lover, savior, whatever archetype that you're looking for in the outer world, when you actualize that within yourself, that's really when the different masters, and I'm going to throw this in because they always had 24 disciples. You know why? 12 were men and 12 were women.
Yeah, but you often only hear about the
24 hours of the day. There were 24. Who do you think all those women that were running around with the disciples? They weren't just running around. They were disciples. It's like the Knights of the Round Table. Who do you think? Guinevere. If you look at every woman, there's a match to the 12. So right. So yeah, and there was always the embodiment of whoever, Buddha, Jesus, they were the embodiment of the 24, of the different archetypes, the male and female. That's why most saints and masters are very androgynous. Yeah, it's not the extreme cheerleader, football player guy.
Yeah.
It's like there's an androgyny that's there. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought I'd just throw that in because,
I like that.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting, our culture and even like the way that we retell history and different things, because you only ever normally hear about the 12 disciples, and from Egyptian texts to the Bible to the like all of it. It's like And
there were so many women. There's so many powerful women. I always think about too how different the paradigm for the last 2,000 years. We lived with not a dying, sexless God, but with Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, and I do believe they were married and had children, as the paradigm of this beautiful couple. She was from one different house of Israel, and he was from a different. So marrying of bloodlines is what I think. And she was from the temples, from the goddess temples, and the different things. But it was a marrying of bloodlines, and that's a very dangerous. It was a very dangerous thing back then. And there's a lot of people go into, who they think Mary Magdalene, but I have a lot of insights about that they're really interesting. But I think they were very powerful, they were a power couple, and that got very disguised and very,
Of course.
And there's books written like 16, there's a book called I think there was 16 previous gods like Jesus who were crucified. There's a lot of things you can look back how things were just dumped onto Christianity. By the Nicene Council, by the 400 whatever BC or AD, they wrote out 11 books of the Bible. So if you want to read something interesting, get the book, the 11 books that they wrote out in the Nicene Council, and they're the books that cover reincarnation, that cover. Different.
Where can we get those?
I've got a vast library, just stuff I bought through the years. Yeah, you could just order it. I think it's actually called the other Bible. That's
amazing.
There's cool stuff in the Gnostic Gospels, and all of them are so powerful because they were the real teachings, early teachings. Yeah, the Essenes
and now everything's kind of coming back full circle, I believe, and that
it's exciting.
And
the knowledge.
It's so important to have those teachings of unconditional love, the teachings of all of because that's really
it's a true path. That's all these people ever taught. They didn't want religions founded after them. They just they lived. They did it. They went out and they healed people, and they didn't judge people. They went into the bars. They went into the whatever. They were just being people. Oh. They didn't set themselves up as this person who wants to be worshipped, right?
Yeah.
And I think if we all would just, we get some of the concepts here. People pay it forward or they buy coffee for people. That's a great start, people. I like that one, but it's like, keep going.
Bought a coffee today. I reversed that karma. I did good. I helped humanity.
Right. And everybody laughs at me because I'm always late to stuff because I'm always the one. I have this thing with animals. I swear, I can be driving along and I'm the person that the mom and dad will be walking in front of the car because they know I'll stop.
Yeah.
So I stop and I make my car stop. So the little texting across the street, or I'll find the lost dog or the lost.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has their own path with it, right? With whatever. So I'd say every day is your path. Whatever comes to you, it's how you deal with it and how you embrace it, and don't see it as separate from you, and be loving and kind.
Yeah, every day is your path.
Every day. People go, "Where's my path?" You're on it.
Every day is your path.
Yeah. It's
That's
not something
beautiful.
defined. It's that, again, that illusion of separation.
Yeah. And being okay with your journey.
Yeah.
You know, like, because
Yeah.
like, just there's no rush to get wherever you think you're going to go.
Yeah, because you're pretty much, you're right in that moment with it. So, and if you want out of that moment, that's what I always say, the best way out is in. And that's the surrendering again.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one sometimes. Sometimes you just have to go, I give. Just going to surrender to, the highest good. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know that we're kind of getting towards the end of this podcast. I believe that
love this. This is so much fun.
I believe that there's many more that we can cover, but you know, I know that we feature you here, and you're going to be doing a few classes and workshops. I'm
so
and
excited.
teachings.
I'm so excited to find a format, because I've been doing my work full time for 47 years. Believe it or not. And in Indianapolis, in Indiana, for 35 years in the same place, I had a healing center. Yeah. And I moved here 20 months ago because my son lives here. My son Merlin lives here. So that's why I'm now in Hollywood. But I was actually on my way here like 40-some years ago, and that's another story. But
you get there when you get there. There is no time.
Karma to be here, because I walked away from huge amounts. I'm very well known. I'm very, it was a whole different world there, because I didn't want to travel when Merlin, my son, was younger, so people came to me. Yeah. And one of the few people back then, I was doing this for anybody who was ever doing it, so I was very established with mainstream, I had TV, radio shows, different things. So it's been a big journey to leave all that known behind and be out here. So I'm really grateful to find you.
We're grateful to have you.
We're going to liberate ourselves and liberate Hollywood.
Yeah, liberate yourself by rediscovering yourself is really what we say here.
Yeah, it's true.
Where else can people find you?
They can find, I'm on Instagram, Marilene the Healer. Is that what my handle? I've heard I have to get a handle.
We'll put a notate in there for everybody.
Marilene Isaacs Kauffman. I have a huge presence on Facebook. I know it's just you young people, but I went on to stalk my son years ago, and all my clients found me. So I have a big presence on Facebook, believe it. And I have a lot of, people put my stuff up on YouTube. I think you can even go on YouTube and find my TV shows from the 80s, really ancient teachings and stuff. I need to get more organized with doing all that. But I do personal work with people, do group work, I do all kinds of stuff.
And soon lots of classes and workshops here at Liberate.
I'm looking forward to it. May 1st.
Yeah, we have one coming up on May 1st. And if you're watching this after then, I'm sure if you just look on our website at liberatehollywood.com, you can find a few that, hopefully we can have you at least once a month or so.
Yeah, that's what I would like to do.
And so there'll be some different beautiful topics and teachings and insight. And as you can tell, even I being blown away by a couple of the just little simple words of wisdom and the phrases that you use, Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I've enjoyed it very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you could do us a huge favor by leaving a comment or review on YouTube, Spotify, Podbean, iTunes, all of those, any of those. If you comment on it, it actually has this thing where it ranks us a little higher so that more people can find it to be exposed to this beautiful content. Always know that we are here to liberate yourself by rediscovering yourself. And so we have lots of classes, workshops, meditations. You can come and visit us in person. We also do distant work. And if you're ever looking for any products and stuff, check out our retail shop that's also online at liberateyourself.com. Thank you.
Send you all love and healing light.
If you enjoyed this conversation, like it, subscribe, and share it with your friends. If you want some more amazing resources on your path of liberation, head over to liberateyourself.com and sign up for our mailing list. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram at Liberate Hollywood, all one word, or Liberate Emporium, all one word. Until next time, liberate yourself.